Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today, my guest is Julie Blank. Julie serves as the Chief Operating Officer at New Standard Equities, where she leads the firm's corporate, multifamily operations, investor relations, and asset management. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Julie about the role technology plays in bringing multifamily teams together in a geographically dispersed industry. But first, if you could help us out, a little quick reminder. If you like our show, CREPN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how attractive our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Julie. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Thank you, Darren. It's a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to our conversation today, but before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, as I say, I'm an accountant by trade, but not by personality. My career was as an auditor, starting with Arthur Andersen and back in Cincinnati. So I graduated with my accounting degree, my CPA, started as a public accountant, realized early on that, again, I'm an accountant by trade, not personality. So I really wanted to get into operations. And when I moved from Ohio to Arizona, that's when I decided to make a career change. However, no one would hire an accountant to do anything other than accounting. So I was a couple of months without a job. So I decided to go ahead and get an accounting job, and ended up in a company doing property management. So that was really my first introduction into this industry, was as a property accountant doing accounting for a third-party management company. And that was many years ago. And here I am now, living the dream, I guess you could say. But it's been great. I've worked with some of the large institutional firms in the industry, and I've been with New Standard Equities now for about 6 years as a chief operating officer. But I've really worked in all different segments of property management and real estate.
No, that's great. The numbers mean a lot in real estate, and having them all in their correct categories and accounted for properly. I mean, it's amazing to me, just the depth of accounting that you can get into with real estate. Not just your rent and your mortgage, the rent in and the mortgage out and payroll and all that, but then you get into cost segregation studies and all sorts of things that can really make a tax, I guess a tax savings and tax advantage, really amplify the tax advantages. I would think that you were uniquely qualified to really recognize that and be able to explain it to anybody that's got any questions for you.
Yeah, I think having that balance of, the numbers and operations certainly has helped round me out to be a greater resource for my company and the companies I've worked for. And really, in a lot of different factors as it relates to looking at underwriting and market analysis, and right now with the market, the way that it is and the interest rates, increasing, in some of our assets, we have floating rate. So it's being able to do that forecast to say, hey, at what point, are we going to, find some challenges, and what do we need to do now to prepare for that? So it certainly has come in handy. And even though I didn't care for accounting, I certainly would do it all over again, because it's got me where I am today, and I love where I am. So it was good.
Oh, that's good. So let's talk a little bit about New Standard Equities. Tell me a little bit about the firm and
Yeah.
what's it all about?
Yeah, so we started about 2010, and we are a vertically integrated value add multifamily firm. So we are strictly focused on West Coast. And by being vertically integrated, that we have our own property management, in-house property management, construction management, asset management, and of course our investment management team. Um, and focus on the West Coast. We're in Washington and California right now, with the goal of expanding into Colorado and Utah. We basically said, we want to be within 3 hours of all of our properties, planes, trains, or automobiles. We like being close to the assets. Not that we've ever had to jump on a plane and be at one of our assets in 3 hours, but it allows us to make sure that we're physically at the assets across all of our different divisions. So that's important to us. And we're a privately held firm. We have about 2,000 units right now. And because of our business strategy, we acquire and we dispose. So we're constantly in that cycle of acquiring properties and disposing of properties. So we've looking to expand, double in size, which is a little challenging when you're disposing and acquiring. A lot of times we kind of net at the end of the year, but it's in the last 6 months we've acquired 2 deals and disposed of 1, and we've got about 3 that we are actively in due diligence with right now.
Got it. Now, the couple of questions for you. So the investment strategy is basically value add, improve, and dispose. Did I hear that right?
That is correct. Yep, all value add multifamily.
All right. And then as far as what's an average hold time for you guys?
We're about 4 years. There's some assets we've, because of market and value, we've been able to dispose of in 3, and sometimes we hold until 5. A couple properties we've had 6, but we're about an average of 4.
Got it. You mentioned goal of 2xing your company here. I'm just curious, is that based on doors or equity, or how do you measure
We do it
that?
based on doors.
Doors.
So, we're about 2,000 units right now. So we want to try to get to 4,000. And we've recently engaged in new relationships with institutional partners, which, is going to help us get there a little quicker as well.
Got it. And you mentioned you guys are private, and you also mentioned partners. Are you syndicating these properties, or how are you?
Yeah, we have a few syndications, but most of our assets are joint ventures.
Okay. All right. And then you mentioned your territory, Oregon, or not Oregon. You specifically did not say Oregon. You said California and Washington, and looking to go into Colorado and Utah. And being vertically integrated, do you have multiple properties in the same location or same town, or how are you set up there?
Yeah, we do. So we have properties in the East Bay area. We've got 6 there. We have 2 in the Inland Empire in Southern California. And then we have 5 in like the greater Seattle area. So we are a bit concentrated in the different regions we're in. We like to have boots on the ground for both the property management and construction management purposes.
Got it. Well, you've clearly demonstrated you've got lots of moving parts between the geographic locations and all the different people, and even with the joint venture investors. So let's talk a little bit about how you are able to communicate with everybody and keep everybody moving on the same page.
Yeah, the intrinsic nature of our industry creates natural barriers because of being geographically dispersed. So we do really rely on technology in order to bridge that gap. So we have a lot of the portals. We've got investor portals that help us communicate with our investors. We have resident portals to help communicate residents, employee portals to communicate with our employees, training portals. I mean, I think this is probably very common in our industry. We're not the only ones that obviously have geographically dispersed properties. We use all those pieces of technology as well as some analytical platforms to help communicate, teach, learn, train, educate, and then of course for reporting purposes. But we still really focus on the face-to-face engagement, because real estate is still a lot about relationship building, whether you're at the site level building relationships with your residents and your prospects, or relationship building with brokers, with investors. There's only so much you can do when you're via Zoom or Google Meets or something. It really still is about physically being together. So we try to create that balance where we still have company events for our employees, where we still really try to get face to face with our brokers and our equity partners and our potential investors, because it's real estate, and we also like to still get to our assets as well. So even though you can do a lot of it remotely, there's still a missing piece because it's a physical asset. So that's why I said we like to be within 3 hours of our assets, because we think it's important that we're on the asset, looking at it, feeling it, seeing it, making sure our business plans are being properly executed, building relationships with our employees for tenure. So we do really try to have that balance, and really looking at technology as a supplement, but not a substitute for our business, is really how we look at it.
Got it. And when you talk about the different types of technology, I mean, you mentioned Zoom and Meets. I think is it Meets? Is that what the Google one is? It used
Meets,
to
I
be.
think we use
I
Zoom
see.
mostly.
Okay, so there. It's funny how some of these things they've had different names at different times, so I
Yeah.
can't keep track of them at all. Beyond that, are there other technologies that you guys employ to, or is it, or do you kind of limit it to that in that as far as the video conferencing, or are there other platforms that you guys utilize to, as far as technology goes that help you out?
I think as far as like video conferencing and seeing people, it's mostly Zoom. We've got the Zoom screens in our different corporate offices, so that we can have our regular meetings with our on-site teams, with our other corporate team members. We're based out of Encino in the Valley, and we have a regional office in Orange County, and then of course all of our satellite offices and where we operate. So really, it's I think Zoom is the one when we want to see people and engage. But we have other platforms, like an analytical platform that we use as a communication tool between site and corporate. And we also have, like I said, like the employee portal that is a communication tool. So really, it's really finding the different ways to message out from corporate and receive information from the sites in order to make sure there's open communication as much as possible when you're geographically dispersed. I think a lot of times there's a breakdown in communication when you're spread out. But we have the employee portals and the analytical portals that we use for those communication purposes, in addition to the Zoom for the face-to-face.
I'm curious, for the different portals, is there a common entry point for management, or is it an exit this one, get into that one, exit this one to get into that one kind of thing? Or,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a great question, because I think we're probably split. We've tried to integrate our systems as much as possible, so there's like a single entry, single sign-on. That's what we've really been focused on most recently. Is okay, we've got these 20 different platforms. I'm probably exaggerating, but we've got 20 different platforms, and 10 of them you can all get in through this one portal, but then the other ones are all individual sign-ons. So we're really trying to figure out how do we create a better efficiency with the different platforms we have, and right now we're actually migrating a couple of our standalones onto a more global platform to eliminate multiple sign-ons. So we're trying to be very aware of that. Our on-site teams probably feel the most impact from all the different pieces of technology because they're the ones that are really in it more day to day. For data entry purposes, we're into it more just for reporting purposes. So the more that we can streamline the different pieces of technology, the more efficient that they become on site too, and the more that they adopt it. The harder you make it for the on-site teams to gain access, to go here, go there, the less that they're going to engage with it and use it properly, and really hold themselves accountable. So that's what we're really focused on now, because we do have a lot of different pieces of technology that we need to really pull together and streamline and almost bundle.
So let me ask you, I'm not really super tech savvy. I understand a few of the concepts, and the one that always caught my attention was single entry input. Was like you could put it in one time and it would populate all these things, and and I've never found that to be the case. It seems like we're constantly inputting data because this platform doesn't speak to that platform, blah blah blah, and so it's very frustrating from that standpoint. But I'm curious. You were talking about just the I guess resistance if it's not easy to use, and then trying to consolidate or get to a point where there's like fewer entry points. Have you found that either there's a platform that makes it available to you, or that you can get multiple platforms to I don't know, talk to each other to where it's more of a or a fewer entry points? Or do you find that the different platforms are they're no, that's I mean, what I find is a lot of resistance where they all want a fee in order to make that to happen, kind of thing, and then it doesn't work. I'm just kind of curious if that's what you find, or if you found a secret way to make that all work together.
If I had the secret, I'd be making a lot more money.
Yeah.
I wish I had a secret. I would share it to make all of our lives easier. But I think I go back to what I was saying, is really being able to look at all the systems we have right now, that some of them promise that they communicated with other systems that were existing, and then we found out they didn't, or you had to pay more, or the communication still required too much manual attention. So those are the ones that we're looking to eliminate. But we have two systems right now. One's a property management platform, and one is an analytical tool. These are the two we're really trying to say, okay, we want everything to feed into these two systems, and that's it. And if it doesn't feed into these systems, then we need to decide how important is it to our core business to keep it or to let it go. Because we spend a lot of money on technology, right? And we buy it and we set it up. It's a lot of labor cost, a lot of time, not just the technology, but people's time, just to find out that when you roll it out, it's either not being adopted or it doesn't integrate well. So that's where we're really pulling back to say, okay, these two systems are the two we're going to use, and can we get everything we need from it? And I'd say by the end of the year, we'll be where we hope to be, if it does everything we want to. And we'll really just be using these two systems, which also talk to each other, that we can be more efficient, more streamlined. We'll have more accurate data, less manual input, the garbage in, garbage out. So the more automated we become, the more integrity of the information we have that we're relying on to make business decisions. So yes, I think we're really looking at these two systems to be the ones that allow all the integration we need, that are supposed to communicate with all the different systems we have, that we can rely on going forward. So I'd say by the end of the year, we'll probably drop anticipated 3 or 4 pieces of technology that we're currently using as we streamline over onto these other two platforms.
So I'm curious, with multiple properties and multiple platforms, have you been able to kind of test different platforms against each other to find which one is the best fit for you? Or has it been more a matter of kind of migrating to just one that was recognized as doing more? Or or how have you gone about making your
Yeah.
decision?
We actually have a focus group that we pull together, depending on the software. But a lot of times we'll pull property manager members into the focus group, asset management. We have a head of innovation, senior director of innovation. We pull in, and then if we need to pull our marketing team in, whatever, we have a focus group. And so we say, okay, this is the piece of technology we want to look at. They will go out and look at all the different vendors that provide that technology. They'll vet through the different system options, and then we really decide on the one. We rarely find an opportunity where companies will allow you to test, for too long, and so you've got to already make a capital investment in one or both of them. So really, what we try to do is say, okay, how can we minimize a mistake by maybe we just phase it in? So we say, okay, we're not going to roll it out to all of our properties. We're just going to choose Northern California, and then we're going to, to use it there, see if it works, work out the kinks. If we're happy with it, then we will go to the next phase and enter into a contract portfolio wide. So we have found that it's more manageable to phase it in like that. And it's less costly or more cost effective, because if it doesn't work, then we've committed ourselves to a smaller piece of our portfolio. But that's really how we've tried to work through it. And that seems to work for us too, is we get the buy-in from all the different groups that are going to be a part of working in this system. And then we get to kind of test it out on a smaller scale that's more manageable.
God, I was just sitting there thinking as you were talking, in that you guys are acquiring properties on a regular basis. Um, have you acquired any properties that had a system that you weren't aware of that worked really well that you stayed with, or has it been kind of the system that you've had from corporate that you've pushed out?
That's actually a good question. And I have to say, maybe it's because of the class of property we buy, the size of properties we buy, but we really haven't purchased a property that we were introduced into a new system and that we adopted. A lot of times they might have the same systems we do, so it's actually easier. We just kind of roll it over and we keep going. But no, I can't say we have. So what we do is we just, use the systems obviously that we have in place, and we, plug and play into the new acquisitions that we take over.
Got it. So it sounds like you're getting down to two systems, which it sounds to me like amazing compared to um, just the multiple options. And if I just find it so frustrating, the amount of time it takes to get a result, at least in our industry, that the you're inputting in this system, then you've got input in that system, and input in that
Yep.
system, and it's essentially the same information over and over and over
Yep.
again.
Mm-hmm.
Which it seems to me that if somebody was really to come to this problem, and it's not unique to property management or insurance or anything, it seems like it's everywhere. But if you could
Yes.
just create the portal that everybody plugged into, and you could create the face of whatever that is, to where the technologies came in and populated from the one comment it went out or something like that, it just seems like it just seems too simple that we continue to have this problem. But it's an aggravation of mine that I gotta let go of. Um, but I'm glad to hear that you're moving to at least more of a I guess fewer systems. And I would assume that based on having fewer systems and having the testing that you've done, that you've got buy-in, and the more people use it, the more familiar they are with it and how to use it, and they're more likely to use it to give you the data that you need so that you can make the decisions that are critical to your business. Is that kind of the end point there? Or?
Oh, absolutely. Because most of the information that we rely on is from property management, feeding information into the system. Um, we obviously have asset management who's doing their piece of it, but a lot of the information starts at the site level, that's impacting on your operational information and your financial information that you're making your business decisions on. So it really is about the adoption of the on-site teams. Um, but what we found is it's not so much training them on the system itself. That's a huge piece, yes. But it's explaining to them, whoever the end user is, explaining to them why. Like, why are we capturing this information? What do we do with the information once you've put it into the system? Why is it so important? Let me explain to you why what you do in this system matters to the overall business plan and how we use it to make decisions. I had one recently that I went through this. I was in our Washington area, and I went to all of our assets, and I was, as we walked through the property information and the operations and walked the property and the financials, and I realized that just by me being there and talking to them about the system, not the system in particular, but the information in it, you could see that they were like, I get it. Like, now I know why you're asking me to push this button every day, you know? So shame on us that we didn't kind of have this bright light before. But after visiting that region a few weeks ago, that's when I realized, like, we need to spend more time explaining to them why they have to work into the system and enter the information they do, because this is how what you do impacts the performance of the asset and the decisions that we make. So it adds value to themselves as well, that what they're doing actually matters.
No, that's a really good point. I'm curious. Um, this is all eventually, or it's all data. I mean, big data is basically the. I mean, we're finally to a point where we're able to, or we've got enough data that we can make decisions that are somewhat predictive based on the past kind of thing.
Yep.
Um, with with uh, the data you're collecting, have you been able to recognize certain data as not useful and also recognize other data that would be useful? And is it, if you have any examples of that you've had over the years?
Yeah, actually, a really great question. I think my first focus point is, what did we realize we needed in working with this, like this analytical platform, this contractor we're working with. He's really helping us build the platform for us. So it wasn't like, hey, choose, platform A, B, or C. It's like, okay, here's kind of our basic, but we'll help build you what you want to be specific for your needs. That's when we started realizing, what is it that we really need that we're doing still manually, right? We've got 3 different people doing it manually to get us the information we need. So it's been wonderful to say, oh my gosh, you can automate this. These are the 5 different pieces that sometimes we just do without because it takes so long to pull together manually, but it's so critical to helping us make decisions instead of guessing. So that's really been helpful in working through this analytical platform that we're using. And this platform also communicates with our property management system. So it's pulling a lot of information out of that system as well. So we've been able to really pull information because we're a renovation company. That's what we do. We really try to track closely our interior renovations and what's the bump that we get from old lease, rent to new lease rent, and what's the market piece versus the renovation piece. So all of this we're trying to build into the system so that it's, again, more automated, streamlined. The integrity information is there, and it's providing us with real quick information so we can make quicker decisions. And it's creating efficiencies because we're not manually doing it anymore. There's still been a lot of manual reporting that we've been doing for different reasons. One's to save money. Technology is expensive, right? And because of the size of company we're not small, but we're not large. So having those economies of scales to really get this big technology has been challenging for a company of our size. So we've always had to weigh, okay, technology versus, I guess, payroll, right? A few hours of someone's time versus spending thousands of dollars, until we scale up. So that's been a challenge for us too. And then the other part of that question you said is, are there things that we've been eliminating? I don't think we've eliminated information that we're like, oh, we don't really need it anymore. We've never really looked at it, don't use it. I think it's actually us adding information we need into these new systems so that it is automated versus being, a manual report. That's where we get our biggest benefit, I think.
Gotcha. I'm curious with property management, how granular do you get with the data? Um, can you give kind of an example of what your property management team is collecting or inputting?
Oh yeah. Every Tuesday we have a revenue management call. So this is a very granular example. And we have asset management and property management on those calls for the specific region. And we're looking at everything from lease trade out numbers down to how many days vacant are the units that have been sitting there. So, and everything in between, lease renewals, going down to actually looking at the individual and do they have balances due, because we're in COVID. So there's still this COVID collection issue and stuff. But it's very granular. And I think that's why it's so important for us to have our in-house property management team, because it allows us to stay close to the asset. It makes us very nimble, quick to make decisions. There's not, a lot of red tape or toes you have to step on if you have a third-party management company, but it does allow us to stay close to the asset and make decisions quicker and making sure that we're aligned with the business plan. So yeah, I mean, we're looking at days vacant, and then we'll talk about staffing. Why is it vacant? It hasn't been ready in 60 days. Why is it not ready in 60 days? Well, we don't have a maintenance team, and we're having trouble with contracted labor because they're having the same issue in our, economy where, it's labor market's short and supplies are hard to get. So these are all the things that we talk about. So we do get very granular in those discussions so that we really understand, what is the root cause and how can we fix it? And, it's a collaborative approach to making sure that, every team is successful in executing the business plan.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. What about with the tenants? How or residents? How that your technology integrates with them?
Yeah, I think we're pretty consistent with the rest of the industry where we have the resident portal and prospect portal so that they can pay their rent online. They can put in a work order online. Of course, they can email the office. So I think everything is there. We have, self-guided tours. If someone wants to do a self-guided tour as an option, the virtual tours. I think we're pretty competitive with the offerings that are out there for residents. Everyone these days, they don't want to really engage with a human if they don't have to. So we want to make sure we give those people the options to never speak if they don't want to us. But, we've got the chat bots and everything as well. So I think we have to be that way for this this generation we're in, because we've all been kind of conditioned, to go through technology to communicate. It's quicker, and if you don't respond in enough time, you've already lost them. You've got like a couple of minutes, and then they're gone and moved on. So we have to have that in place, but we still have our staff on site, so that those that want to engage, we're there and available. And we have to be available because there's some people who don't want to use technology. There's some generations who still want to talk to people. So again, it kind of goes back to that balance of, yes, we have all the technology that you want if you don't want to ever speak to us, but if you do, we're here as well. So you can come see us or pick up the phone.
No, I think I'm crossing over from the technology to the I like the people kind of
The
thing.
human contact.
Yeah, just sometimes I mean, technology is great when it works. I think that's one of the frustrations with it is that, I think that in a platform that you're in daily, you're familiar with the ins and outs and how to do things. The frustration I think I find is more often with the app that somebody told me that I had to have, that I downloaded, that I use once every,
Yes.
so often, that every time I go into it, it's needing an update or they've changed something or I can't remember my login. So I think there is a frequency of use that I think has to be taken into consideration for actually making it, something. But I mean, somebody, if you're paying rent or communicating with landlord, property management, or whatever, um, that seems like that's a frequency that's regular enough that shouldn't be a resistance. Have you had much resistance, or do you, percentage wise, you mentioned there's some that still like to talk versus some that, or more that like the technology? Is there a percentage number, if you had to guess what that might be, that like the technology versus the still in person?
It would be a total guess. I just recently was looking at our online payment penetration rate, right? So how many of our residents are paying, online, whether it's through credit card or ACH? And I was actually shocked by the low percentage, and we're about 50%. But again, I think just the geography in which we're in, I think maybe leads to that too. But that being said, I think people, I'd say maybe 50%, because I think people still, some people are just comfortable with the connection, the talking to someone and feeling like you can rely on them and that they're honest, they have some integrity, and that, there's emotion that comes out of speaking with someone and seeing their, whites of their eyes, I say. And that means something to people. So I think there's probably part of the process, whether you're a resident or a prospect, is fine to do through technology. But I think at some point through any piece of the process, there has to still be that human connection. So, maybe half of our residents still want to communicate face to face, and maybe the other half, would rather just do it through technology or an app. But we still require of our on-site teams to, no matter what standard operating procedure, what process we have in place, we still put a touch point in there of a human contact, so that we create that sense of resident tenure, resident retention, that we're not just a chatbot or a robot or AI, that we care. And that's one of our values as a company, is one of our 4 values is we care. And, we care, so we're available for you. And really to build that relationship is through face-to-face interaction too. So that's important to us through, all this technology is great, but like I said, it's a supplement and not a substitute for what we do. And, again, real estate is a relationship building industry, I think, and we like to keep it a main point of our focus.
No, I agree. I'm curious on the 50% that aren't utilizing the ACH or credit card for rent payments. Any sense of percentage that are unbanked? Is that a low percentage with your residents, or do
Yeah, I'd
you have an
probably
idea?
say maybe 20%.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think some people still are a little hesitant to give out their banking information. They don't want to automate it in case there's a dispute, over the rent or a charge. I still think that there's some skepticism out there among individuals,
yeah,
which is okay. So, we still allow them to, give us a check or a money order, if that's what they're comfortable with.
yeah. No, it's interesting how that is. Um, what about with your vendors? Is there are all your vendors plugged into the platform? So if you need something, you are able to um, communicate with them, or is that an outside platform?
It's a platform rolled up into our property management system, that they, as far as invoicing and everything, certificates of insurance, that's all automated. So that communication is through automation. We have a small percentage of our vendors that are outside of that program, not the insurance piece, that's always the important piece, but some of them are really small, kind of family run businesses that are a little less technically savvy, that sometimes run outside of our platform. But I'd say we have about 85-90% of our vendors that we use through the portal.
Got it. And I'm curious with the platforms and stuff. Do you use your IT department, or who's responsible to make sure that or that monitors to make sure things are working the way they're supposed to as far as the communications?
That would be me.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
and my director of innovation. The two of us are kind of the IT for the company. And again, it's because of scale, right? I mean,
right.
I'd love to have an IT division, but we're not quite there yet. So it's myself and our director of innovation that really make sure that the technology that we choose, we vet it well, that it's going to integrate, that we have a good relationship with the vendor, the contractor, and then she's responsible. Our senior director is responsible for understanding the integration and the communication among the pieces of technology, and carrying on the training, the rollout, and the relationship with our contractor, which is extremely important. So there are moments we have to reach outside and get an IT consultant. It's rare that we've been able to usually figure it out ourselves and just working with our contractors.
No. Well, I think the key to that I've come to recognize is that if nobody's paying attention, or there's not somebody that's kind of looking over it and making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, or
Mm-hmm.
uh, left on. I know there's some famous quote out there talking about whatever you fail to inspect, or whatever. I don't remember what it is, but you have to constantly
Yeah.
stay on top of it in order to make sure it works the way you're getting what you expect, kind
Oh,
of thing.
absolutely. And
So,
that's what our senior director of innovation does. I mean, I can't do that every day in my role, but that's what she's really tagged with, is ensuring that what we've signed on for is working the way that it's supposed to from the vendor side, but then also internally, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing to make it work as well as it's supposed to? And are we using it to full capacity? That's the other
right.
thing. It's like, example, like my iPhone, I probably use 20% of its 100%
Yeah.
capacity.
My kids
So
constantly remind me of that. I'm not utilizing
exactly.
100%.
I
Yeah.
I have teenagers as well, so I know I'm not using but
Uh,
10-20% of my phone capacity. But that's the same thing with the technology we have in our firm. Are we using it to its full capacity and getting not just our money's worth, but really using it to help us continue to be more streamlined, automated, and help us make better business decisions quicker with more integrity of information.
yeah. No, I think one of the frustrations I have with that is that I think there's a lot of people that understand how to push the button, but don't understand what the information behind the button means, kind of thing. And I'm old enough, been doing this long enough to know that before there was a button, I had to know how to do that to get the
Right.
result, kind of thing. And so there's a part of me that I know how to do the work as opposed to just push the button, that gets frustrated with the people that don't understand the work that's being done when you push the button. And so, um, but anyway, it's kind of I mean, if the work gets done and it gets done the way it's supposed to, what's the difference between pushing a button or, doing the work if you're still getting the results you need? But I think there's, you know, I guess for myself, it's kind of just that reconciling it and recognizing that, hey, look, we're getting what we need. What do you care how you got it, kind of thing. So, but no, I applaud your efforts here. Being spread out the way you are, and all the transactions and the people you have, the different moving parts, and trying to find your way through these different systems. That it's a chore, and I think that the thing that I recognize is it's not like technology is going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant update thing. So, I mean, just because something's working today, you would expect that the next iteration will work better. However, I've seen that that's not always the case, but there is a progression period. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess we might as well get used to it. Julie, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second. By day, I'm an insurance broker, and I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk. And if that's not an option, then we look and see if there's a way we can minimize the risk. And if we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, then we look to see if there's a way we can transfer the risk. That's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. They can frame the question however you choose to,
Mhm.
whether it be your clients, investors, technology, employees, the market, politics, whatever you think might be the biggest risk. But see if you can identify what your biggest risk is. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Julie Blank, what is the biggest risk?
Well, a couple months ago, my answer might have been different, but now that, the market has been changing so drastically with I think with the speed and magnitude of the interest rate increases, it has, spooked investors. It's, put some wind in the sail of borrowing. Um, but there's still a lot of capital out in the market. Investors want to do deals. They need to place capital. So deals will still get done, but I think the the risk that we're looking at now um, is being able to continue to do deals, but looking at the severe impact that the interest rates will have on your cash flow. Um, especially for us, what we do, we're value add. So our cash on cash is, already a little low. We're more about, when we dispose of the asset. So when you are in an area that we are and the interest rates are increasing, we have to really step back and really scrub the underwriting, be a little bit more conservative, educate our investors. Some investors have stopped investing. Some have become a little bit more cautious, rightfully so. And then, we have other investors that are still going, hey, let's figure out how to make it work. So it's really just being able to realize that the market's changing now and that it might continue to be that way for the next, couple of years, not only on the acquisitions, but on our existing deals, like I mentioned earlier in our conversation is, some of our deals, we have floating rates. So it's being able to step back and forecast and look at what the risk might be. How do we overcome the risk and be more proactive right now? So I think a lot of it's going to come down to just kind of protecting cash flow, being able to underwrite new deals and realize that we're not going to get the 18, 19, 20% returns that we were able to underwrite a few years back, and be satisfied that we might get 11 or 12%, which is still really good as a return, and that apartment investment is still the top real estate investment type. And we've been in difficult cycles before in real estate and we've survived. So yes, there's a risk. We're not going to be stupid. We're optimistic. We're cautiously optimistic. But we also know that real estate is still a good investment, and apartments in particular, especially the asset class we're in, we're B class. So we're right in the sweet spot that when markets are doing well, the economy's doing well, C's go to B's. When the economy starts to not go so well, the A's go to B's. So we're a bit protected as far as the occupancy and rents and stuff. But I think we still have to realize that there's going to be some risk and some hit on our cash flow because of the interest rate increase. But I think it won't make us stop doing deals. We just have to be a little bit more cautious and work with our investors much closer, so that we have a better understanding of where we are, where it's going to go. I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did, but it's hard to say. Things have moved so fast that I think just taking a step back and looking at things closer is something we need to do. But at this point, we're continuing to operate business as usual with continued focus on being aggressive as much as we can with rents, which is going to help overcome a little bit of the interest rate increase and the inflation, and continuing to work in our technology platforms to get all the information we can to make good decisions. Is where we are.
I appreciate you sharing that. Definitely some challenging times ahead. But like you said, we've been here, done that, and survived. It's kind of just a matter of changing the chapter here for a little bit and then go back to the chorus. So
Absolutely.
but
I mean, we didn't know we'd survive a pandemic.
right.
We got through it. I mean, we've been through worse, so we'll all get through it. We know we will.
We have to. That's the only way. Hey, Julie, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Well, we have a website, which is newstandardequities.com. It's got information about the company, about the executive team, all of our properties, and my information's on there as well. So, I mean, I can give you my email. I don't know what you're looking for, but
no, I mean, we can point them to the website, and that'll be good there. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, Julie, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Darren. It was a pleasure. I had a good time too.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio.